Hello everybody, and we're going to show you how to use Blender as a newbie coming into Blender. Just so you know. Just show you how to get something quick inside Blender to render it, because I'm not messing with the modeling or that stuff, just give you an overview of the interface. You have tools, sidebar. So what is this? Like the file menu, information menu, info menu bar, and we got editor, type 3D view, timeline, and this one is properties, outline. This is the default view, like when you first install it, start it up. I am on a 3:4 aspect ratio monitor, so you might have more room on this sidebar to see what's going on. I don't, so what you can do is drag it out. We're good to go. Also, these sidebars, like if you collapse them, you'll also see these tiny little plus symbols that bring back the same sidebar. So you can collapse them completely, it does the same thing. Or you can use the hotkey T for tools. And I guess this is what the property is. Well, it gives you all the properties of whatever object is active. And the hotkey for that sidebar is N as in noob. Alright. But, oh yeah, if you left click, it moves the hot point cursor around, and you right click to select things. You gotta click and hold the middle mouse button to rotate your view around. Something useful starting out to know that. And we have under this bar these different buttons. You can actually scroll over them, like if you don't want to get the bar too wide, you can scroll them back and forth. And here you can scroll up and down to get to everything. And to render, let's just quickly click render. And you get the rendered image view. Now, there are two ways you can get out of this. You can go back to 3D view by clicking on that icon, or you can push escape, so you don't get stuck there. And you can also, let's see, split windows. If you grab just like three little lines here, so if you grab that, oh, not on that one, I guess it's like this one. If you grab that, you can split your window. And if you want to get your window back together, I think you can grab that triangle or that triangle. Oh, it doesn't want to do it that way. It just splits it again. You gotta go from the one on this side, I guess. And highlight. Yeah, there we go. Oh. And you just highlight and get them back to size. Something you gotta watch out for, like when you're new to it, because you're moving around, you don't know how you're doing. It's easy to split a window and not get it back. Likewise, you can also split a window and go down and change the kind of window it is. So, node editors and all that good stuff. But we don't want to do that, so just go ahead. And there are different window groupings that come with the program. So you have 3D full view, animation, which will have your dope sheet and your graph editor. And these are all handy if you know what you're doing. Compositing, default, theme logic, but I'm not using it right now. Motion tracking, scripting if you know your way around Python. UV editing, which can be handy for texturing, and video editing, is handy for animation. So go back to default. And what we want, what's fun to do, like There's the blender render, which is fairly quick and all that stuff, but personally I prefer the newer cycles render because you get more controls of your materials. And since we're dealing with an object right now, we got different things that relate to the object or the scene. So we'll go over that real quick. We have, this is the scene outliner, I believe. Yeah, the outliner. So this is your outliner. Gives you all your objects in the scene. You can click on them. So that's the lamp. Cube. That's your camera. The arrow points up. If that arrow is solid, that's your active camera. World, I don't think you can click on that, or render layers, but they have to do with aspects of how the scene is rendered as well. So, object in the scene, we click on the cube, and the cube has, well, that's just a scene, that's like a general property for render layers. Okay, so this relates to that. And this is a scene, which is another general kind of aspect of things. This is the world, which relates to the properties of that, which is your background color. So tell it to use nodes. Ambient occlusion, which is like another extra thing in lighting. I tend to turn this down. If you have it up strong, it gets too bright. Ditto with this, I turn this down. So, 0.35. Something low. We're in cycles, so we go object mode. You can change how your cube is viewed. Like, you can force the cube to stay in wireframe. Speaking of views, see down here, if you go to the bottom of the 3D window, you have object mode, edit modes. Gives you all the tools you need. Wireframe, how it's viewed. So you click wireframe here, solid or whatever mode you're in. But for most of these modes, you can force it to stay wireframe or just the bounds of the box, which is the same as for cube. Solid. So you can force the minimum draw. And there are some extra things that are handy for drawing. Object mode gives you a lot of your object properties, location, which layer it is relating to these render layers. And we have constraints, which are good for either building objects or animating objects. They tie into like kind of relationship between objects. It's sort of like a parent-child, but you can also build meshes and have constraints between bones. That's a whole other stuff. I'm not going to get into it yet. Modifiers, which let you do things like subdivide, so you can subdivide a cube into a polygonal sphere. But there's also a simple mode, which just subdivides without reshaping, so it will break up your mesh. If I were to go back to object mode, turn on wires, you can see something like the subdivider do. In simple mode, it breaks up the mesh into smaller blocks. But we're not going to be using a modifier right now. I'll turn that off. This is vertex groups, which has mostly to do, if you take this into edit mode, you get vertexes. So you control like how these vertexes themselves that define your mesh, or create groups for them. It's also handy for selection and doing things like particles. So get back out of edit mode, object mode. I'm just giving you a quick overview so you get what's going on. This one here is your material editor, and we already have a basic material assigned. It's just material. Tell it to use modes. Since we're in cycles, you always should use nodes and cycles. Have various textures which can be applied to the object, but don't have to be, because it can relate to the scene or other effects. Particles, which is kind of like a type of modifier, but a very special one. And we have physics, which is for animation purposes. And for creating stuff like cloth or special effects fluids or rubbery elastic soft body things, and how rigid objects interact with each other in terms of physics, rigid body constraints. It's kind of neat, but I'm not going into that. I'm just going to go quick render. So let's say we want to bring something to our scene for a quick render. Let's just delete this cube. You can hit delete or X, either one works. Just pick the option to delete again. It confirms it, I guess. I don't know why, but not all apps have you confirm and delete. And we will import a wavefront object. Let's see, do I have anything interesting? Acro Twin V2, that's an airplane, I think. I don't want to do that one. Weird things, metal cage ball. It's just a random object. I'm just trying to pick something simple enough but interesting. So we'll pick that, port it, this mesh I made. As you can see right now, it is all treated as when you first bring a new item in, it has everything selected for that new item. But you will see that if it is made out of more than one part, they are still considered as separate objects. I don't know if there's a way to import them grouped, but there is a way to deal with that. So what we can do is, I guess we'll turn on this property. That's 3D Cruiser. Do we have Fertile? You know what? Translate is over here, isn't it? So it's on that side, I think. Wait, that was the last translation. Oh well, never mind. We will just add an empty cube. We will try to package the object inside the empty cube. Oh yeah, when you move your cursor around, that's where your new object usually imports. So, if it's not centered, that's why. And you can actually use snap to move the cursor to the center before you import a new object and stuff like that. And you have menus that do various things here. Sometimes it's good to learn the menus. I know like a lot of places will show you hotkeys, but unless you know all the hotkeys, that's a problem. But another thing with tutorials that always show you how to do things by using hotkeys is if you don't know some aspects of it, the hotkeys will like perform more than one step for you automatically. So if you go to change something and you don't know how to do it the other way, you get stuck real easy. That's the only thing I noticed on some of these tutorials. It's like they don't explain how to do it the other way, and you're like, why isn't it working? Or if you want to change something later on, you get stuck. So something for tutorial makers out there doing other tutorials. They should at least give a quick run through or an overview of like, hey, I did it this way, it does all this automatically, and go back through the steps just to show what it covered automatically. I've ran into that. Just talking as a newbie here. And we got different controls for, let me turn off sidebar here with N. See, I'm not exactly most proficient. New to Blender, but not new to 3D, just so if anyone knows. I move the box where it is. And scale it, use nose controls. So it'll tell you if you hover. Movement, rotation, scaling. It tells you all the, it tells you what it is, what you're hovering over, what the thing does, and it'll give you all the scripting information, which I guess is great if you're scripting or developing the program, but I don't really need that information. I just need the first two lines starting out. What I'm trying to do is drag this empty placeholder. These empty placeholders don't render, by the way, if you render the item. Click on that, render. You don't see placeholders, just so you know. But they're handy for keeping everything grouped together or defining objects in space. So we'll do that. That's close enough to enclosing the whole thing. And we will name this empty by going to object mode. Scrolling this bar up here to where the object name is. Click on the name and you can rename it. Thingamajig. I don't really have a good name for it, but it's like just a weird looking ball with screws. So we're doing this just to keep it all together, like if we want to move it around or something. So we select one item, we shift select, and we shift select the one that we want them all grouped under last. It has them all last. I think you can do Control P to parent, but we are going to just do it through the menu, so in case you don't remember all the hotkeys. Like I said, some of these things can cover more than one step. So you go Control P, parent, object. There's more than one type too, which is kind of funny. All at the same hotkey, but that brings up a sub menu, so it does the same thing. But going through this menu, you don't need to do an extra sub menu, so you do it this way. That's why they're all the same hotkey. If you hit Control P, it would bring up all these options. Just so you know. And we click Object. And we're not doing transforms as far as I know, so it's just to the object. Bam. Now all those disappear from your outliner list, but they are underneath that if you click the little plus, minus, drop down. Some programs will have like little arrows that turn 90 degrees. This one has plus, minus. Same concept. And you can turn on the visibility of different parts. These are visibility, these are selectability, and these are whether or not they render until it to render. But we click, make sure that's selected. And now all these parts are child objects of this object. Move the parent object, and they all move together. It's the easy way to organize things, because when you import a new object, you'll have all your parts flying around if you don't do that kind of step. So, now we want to render this thing. Right now it's just a plain white object. It looks weird. It's kind of neat, but we want to make it look cooler. So like I said, this is quick. Not the quickest thing, but if you're starting out, it's a quick way to get going. So you're not going to, if you have models you already have, but you don't feel like modeling and rating and all that stuff, you just want to bring things in a render. That overview should get you started. So what we want to do now is set up our materials on the cubes. We got to select at least one part of it, the ball. Then we click on the material part. And if your object has more than one material, you will see them here. There's B2 and default. Not everybody names their models perfectly or names all the materials in their models. So you might want to name different parts. We can see that this is a yellowish tinge on B2. Default is the rest of it, apparently, or default 2. And sometimes more than one part may share a material. So if you click on the cage, I guess, that's also default 2. Yeah, so all these are sharing the same default 2 material. And we can change that. So let's go screws. This is default 2. We widen this out, we can see everything. This shows how many objects or things, parts share the same material. So that's 3. And we can click on that to make a single copy. So now it renames it default 2 with the appended number. Number gets added to it. Don't worry about that. We can just click on it and rename it. So now we know that material is just for the screws. And this thing here, there are screws. And make them metal, obviously. This thing's just going to be a whole metallic looking. And we don't see nodes inside, so we click use nodes. So we want to make sure these are all nodes. Use nodes. Use nodes. And we do the cage. Once that out, that's already the things. Change this one to. We don't want to. Yeah, because I'll name all of the default. You just gotta click on that. Now change its cage. And we click oh. That, and just name that ball. These B2s, I'm going to make them glowy lights, so let's see a glowy light. There. Now we have better names for our materials. So how do we go about changing these materials? You can just click around here to change them. So glowy light, can do that here. We'll just change this to an emission for a glowy light. Let's make them green just by clicking on the color bar there. Strength I'll leave alone for now. You change that during render. Metal ball, I can do it through here, which is fine, but it's even better to go to compositing and click on the color space for the nodes. So you have nodes for textures and compositing stuff. World space, which I assigned nodes. You can make the background color darker. Go back to the object, which is our last selected object. Compositing, you have the different parts here, so click on that. Select. Yeah, I've got it selected. Here it's kind of like in the outer scene with your object properties. And since I don't want to take up too much space pulling that out, I'll just scroll the top bar like I did on the other screen. You can scroll it with your mouse. Go to materials. So we have the glowy light, we have the metal ball. So for the metal ball, we can change this node to input, or actually a shader of glossy. We can hit X to delete that node. Sign, like that. I think I want the metal ball to be like a brassy or gold color. So do something like that. Roughness. Okay. And probably want shiny highlights. So we add a mix shader. To pick up highlights, we need a Fresnel or Fresnel, depending on how you choose to speak. You can either pronounce it S or not, depending on normal English you would, but I don't think the name is English. It's like a person's name, so it's probably Fresnel. But English you'd say Fresnel. I don't know. But English also adopts foreign words and foreign names, so it's probably Fresnel is probably the correct way to say it. And we want a netter glossy shader for highlights. So using the Fresnel mixer, we'll get out the bright highlights. And we don't want much roughness on there, so 0.007, something like that. Bring that up high. Since I want this to be an interesting kind of metal, I will also add displacement, which works in 2.68 alpha. If you're not sure which version you're in, you use the splash screen, and you'll see different pictures here depending on which version you got, and obviously your version information and release are up here too, along with other tools you can use. But I know, random stuff. Off on the side here. Alright. Displacement, we want texture. We can do noise. Renee, Musgrave. I'll just stick with the basic noise. Vector is like a grayscale value which goes is grayscale. If you haven't noticed with nodes, light colors tend to plug into like things. Not always the case, you can sometimes mix and match, but I think green, you try to keep green. The others, you have a little bit more flexibility. Blues, vector space. Well, you can read up on it, just know there's a lot of stuff. But it's pretty much plug and play with nodes. And if you want to know what nodes are, there are different properties. And the layout goes from left to right, and how they flow, this tree branches, all these channel down and go into that. And if you want to think about it, it's actually a logic map. Because all the logical things, like what is step here, what is step here, it's like a flow chart in some ways, so it's a logic map. And if you want to move more than one node at once, you'd think just to click on this, shift click, that. But if you try to shift click and drag on the last item, it will not work the way you expect, because shift click and drag, it just draws your lines. So what you want to do to move a group of nodes, click, shift click, but don't drag on any of the boxes, drag on the space around the boxes. So you gotta drag on the background. That's how you move groups. Or you can node and where's scroll up here. Make groups. Or join with frames. So you can join when new frames, like select a whole bunch, join in a frame. Then by moving the frame around, you can move groups that way if you want to keep them grouped, and you can name your frames and label them. Just handy. Or you can remove from frame. Select all the node, remove from frame. And we can select the frame and delete the frame. There's other ways to group nodes, but there's other tutorials that explain it better. So we got our metal material assigned here. Go back to default, give us a bigger screen. You can see that some of the aspects of this object have changed with the material changes. Let's click render. And we can see it's kind of dark, but yes, there is stuff going on here. Let's escape out of that. See where our camera and our light is. Select our light. Let's move it a bit. It's real quick and dirty. There are a lot of things you can change or fix. You can add a plane with an emitter to cast light in the cycles. That's a common way of lighting scenes. I'm just going to use the default light. And light objects have a different image for their object properties, or material properties, I mean. It's rather a light property. In this case, it also has nodes. Click use nodes. And since it's light, it automatically goes to mission. Let's turn up the strength. Whoa, way too fast. Scrolling is way too fast. So. Or dragging, I mean. Not scrolling. Don't try to scroll on it, it won't work. Drag it, I mean. Go 1000. Just enter values. Let's try it like that. Render will be from the camera view, so we can see our materials have changed. Our bump is not all that bumpy. So let's go back to the ball here. Yes, we are in metal ball. And everything you build in nodes will also start showing up under here. You can expand that. Expand that. The displacement is what we want. Let's up the scale for the noise here. Now let's try rendering again. A lot of it is test, render, test. Got bump, but it is too bumpy. That looks cool. Let's change that a little bit more. So, positing. Yeah, it's back and forth. Not too bright in this metal color up. Bump is too bumpy. So let's add a converter node with math on it. Click that on there, it automatically connects if you overlap. And they want to multiply. Let's change the mode. And let's make multiply by 1/4, which will actually scale it down. 0.25, there's a quarter. Default. See, a lot of setting up stuff is going back and forth. See, that looks closer to the way we want it. It's like a bumpy brass bronze material. Oops, I clicked on the wrong spot. Bump is still too bumpy. Oh, yeah, sometimes the way these are interpreted with vectors, it's if you're not sure what they're doing. If you're not sure what they are doing, you can add a vector. Input text or coordinates. That way you know which one they are using. Let's try object. You can actually render in here too, so I go up here. Render. Just render there. That's more like it. This kind of material it's going for. And I may want to turn it bump down even more. So let's do that. 50. Quick render. As you can see, it's already changing. So now we got some materials. The glowy part isn't quite bright enough. So we go click on the glowy light. Let's change the strength. Yep, I didn't want to click on that. I want to click on there. A few times. Hold on, here we go. A little bit brighter. Still not bright enough. Scroll back up there. Click over here. Let's just drag it a little bit. Oh, it drags really fast. I think you can also hold. Oh. Let me click off it. If you're scrolling it, you can hold Control. It does increments of 10. Shift. No. Alt. Alt gives a little bit more fine control. Shift Alt, a little bit finer control. Still very fast for that setting. Very fast. Sometimes it's just better to manually input numbers. Let's go back up to render. Glowy lights are a little bit too bright. They're blowing out. So we want to go back. Materials. Let's just do 2.75. 2 3/4. Quite as blown out, but they're bright enough to see it. They are glowing. And emitter materials actually work as lights under cycles in that render engine, which is kind of cool. You don't have to do any fakey stuff with lighting and cycles. And I should probably show you how to move the camera, so you can select the camera. And we can go view camera, which as you can see is also numpad 0 hotkeys. So it's a faster way to get your views around. But if you hit your middle mouse button to move, you jump out of the camera. So you want to move the camera by moving your view. You can move your view and have the camera jump to your view. Or you can do hit N. And while the camera is selected, which will show when it's orange, lock the camera to view, and now you get a red dashed line, which shows your camera is locked to the view. So now whenever you move the view while your camera is on, that is what you will have from rendering. You need to notice when you're doing a quick render. Yeah, I wish I was faster at this. Still new at it, but I'm explaining it in a way that might be good for noobs. Shows up all dark. Let's move our view around. Oop. Escape back to that. Let's lock our camera back to the view again. Let's zoom out. Where's our light? It's back here. There's a tiny little hair thin line. You might not see it coming down from the bottom of the light. So that little hair thin line here shows where the light is. Let's move to the side of the light. Zoom in. If you hold shift while you're in the middle of clicking, you can actually offset a bit. There's other ways to get more fine control over zoom and scrolling. You'll just have to look it up. I'm not going to try explaining that part. It's a little tricky, but where lighting is. That looks pretty cool. But I noticed this cage on the mesh is showing polygons. Let's try to fix that. Oh, did I bump my mic? Let's click the cage. We can change the cage to smooth rendering. And let's render real quick again. Over here you can change the shading from smooth to flat. What's smooth? And it's still showing some polygons even with smooth. So let's use a modifier this time. Cage. Modifier, add modifiers. And subdivision surface. Let's make those the same for now. Let's render it again. Smooth, but I don't know if I want it that smooth. So let's add a second modifier in the chain. Excuse me. Edge split, which will help you retain some hard edges while smoothing everything else. And the order of which these modifiers go on is important. If you move this one up, it changes the behavior. Then when it's down, you can see it distorts all weird. You can move this one back to the top. I think this is the way I want it. Let's render it again. I can see it's smooth on those edges, but where it comes to faces or hard edges, it actually gets a hard edge. So, and we can change the modifier a little bit more. Let's go 25. I think that is good enough. We want a little bit more. See, a lot of the stuff is just adjusting everything. A lot of adjustments, you should know that by now if you've been in 3D Line. Change the material for the cage, let's do that. Man, the cage. Oh, I'm not. There. Oh, yeah. Let's just make that glossy. Some roughness. And a darker gray. Bluish color. Slightly blue tinge. And it should look pretty cool. And screws and header metal, which is also going to be glossy. Or better yet, let's try anisotropic. I think that's how you say it. I don't think it's aniso, I think it's aniso. Somebody might say it the other way. To work, it actually needs a roughness value. And I'll just dial that around a bit. You can play with these values, I'm just messing. That should be interesting. Something like that. Let's click render. And that looks pretty cool. Where's our scene light? Scene light. I think the size actually affects the brightness in this render. Let's see, what else did I do? World, ambient occlusion. Let's actually bring that back up. Now let's raise. Let's see, go 0.8. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do something else. The world, I'm gonna change it from a background. Let's see, to a sky. You have a sky? Background. Well, I know what we gotta do. We gotta go back to compositor. And we want world space. There we go. Background, world output. Let's add. Where is it? Sky? There we go. Sky texture. And there's something neat to do with sky texture. So add another texture. Let's see. Shader. I want color mixer. So I don't remember where all these things are. Alright, so color mixer, texture mixing. Shader, input. I do want another texture. I want Musgrave. Rich multifractal. We'll see what I'm doing in a bit. So we got a bit of sky. Something like that. Add. Is it RGB? I think so. One of these looks so. That, and that. Let's go back to default. Ridge multifractal gives you these little spots here, which is kind of neat. Because what we will do is go back to compositing. I like those little spots because dial up in a bit. Drag this off the side. Still nowhere near enough. When you mess with these values, it just takes a lot of playing around a bit. It's kind of interesting, but these little spots are still not bright enough. Add a converter. Oh, I'm trying to remember where some of this stuff is. Get see bright contrast. What? The contrast is way up. Let's scale down. This is what he says. I know there's a way to do it. I've done it before. That's why I'm doing this. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We're getting close. So, dial the contrast up. And now let's go back to default. And by doing that, we created like a starry background. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, it's like little spots everywhere. Can make more of them. Probably dial the brightness up a bit. There we go. It takes a while. It's kind of fun just playing around, rendering, redoing. Yeah. We can delete that node and let's try further math. I believe power is the useful one. Where's the power? Where's the power? Oh, it's up here somewhere, right? Yeah, splash. Here it is. Alright. Let's try the screen. Let's go back to that or what? We're working on our rendering. Because the spots are too big, so let's go back to compositing. And a little bit dimmer. And we'll up the scale here, but should make it smaller. I could probably dial the brightness down a tick or two. Just gotta follow visually what I'm doing here. A lot of this just adjusting. Yeah, I'm probably boring as hell right now, aren't I? Oh, so many of these tutorial videos put you to sleep. The guy is so boring. Be like, he tells you good stuff, but he's just like nothing going on. I hope I'm not doing that right now. It's like, here we go. So we got this metal orb-looking thing floating out in space. We notice our render is a bit grainy and noisy, so let's fix that last. We're in cycles, which uses sampling. And right now our render and preview are at the same value. Preview, by the way, is... Oh, let's go back to 3D view. You can change how you view it. And if you use rendered mode to view it, that's what your preview setting is. So leave that at a low value, because otherwise it's just going to stick and try to keep rendering through it, which will slow you down a lot. So just leave it at default 10 is pretty good. Texture, shade, material, that's close enough. But render, we will want to dial up, not that high. Probably like 1200, 1500. Then you have light paths, which are various things like if you're using reflections, sometimes it's fun to play with. Filter gloss, bump that up a few ticks. Everything else looks good. You can turn off caustics if your image stays noisy and you don't need them. I tend to leave that alone. Clamp, you can do. If you get a lot of noise, you can use clamp, but it kills your highlights. And it seems to be overall values. So I use something really high, like 85,000. I'm sure there's lower clamp values, but I don't like killing my highlights, so I just go high. GL render, I don't know if that does anything performance. If you use your computer for other things while you render in the background, you'll want to go fixed. This is auto detect, by the way, right now. So if you click fixed, just go one thread below what auto detect shows, and that will leave a core open for browsing or doing whatever while it renders in the background. It's a little thing I learned, otherwise your computer is going to go bog slow on you. So one less. If you only have one computer and you want to do other things while it's rendering, just make it one less than what you need. This is tiles. If you can render on your CPU, you dial these up high. Or actually, if you render on your GPU, you dial these up like high to 256. I render on my CPU, and I find a good size on mine seems to be 48. It varies on your system, so you can play around with that. On mine, I do 48. And you can actually progressively refine the image, which is another mode. You can click that, and instead of doing tiles, it will do the whole scene. In which case, you can set your samples. Oh, where is it? Ridiculously high. And I think if you set it to 0, it'll just keep going and going. Not sure if that's the case, but you can go a real high number too. And when your image looks good enough there, you can tell it to stop rendering, because it will render the whole scene if you do it that way. But I got it set to tiles because it just speeds up and gets good enough. So let's click on that, and here we go. You got something rendered. When a tile gets done, it should move to the next tile. I have my samples. Well, I could show you with the lower sample rate, and you were probably seeing it do it anytime. When I was clicking render anyways, you'd see it do that. Go with the dimensions on my computer. Yeah, I use XGA still. Not WXGA or whatever they got, 1080p or whatever. I just use XGA on my computer. This is old, or at least my monitor is dead. One more thing. I didn't turn my samples down. I'll turn my samples down to the right value. Let's go 56. Weird, I like computer numbers. And you have other options under your render which can control where you render your new image, and feature sets for other rendering options. Experimental lets you get more shaders and things like hair, eventually volumetrics and more bump options. So when you get a newer version of Blender, you can get even more options under experimental. I usually just switch it. I haven't really had it crash by just switching it. Open shading language, you can turn that on or off. Just using plain old nodes without any plugins, so I don't really need it right now. So let's click render, let's see how it goes. And as more samples come in, you get more details. And when each square is finished, it jumps to the next. There you go. Hope this wasn't terribly long. I'm not going to render out the whole thing just for you on this. And you can do your own thing like cars, airplanes, or stuff. Just get a quick overview in the process. Probably skip ahead in this video. Is there anything else I need to tell you starting out? Probably not. That will give you a good run through to do what you need to do. Even if it's a bit long-winded. There you go. That's good enough. Sorry it took so long.